Hey guys, it's Marisa at KitchenTableStamper.com. Let me start off by welcoming you to video number 2 in a series. It's a Seaside Notion, free as a bird, stamp a stack, and you're coming in on the second video in the series. So if you haven't seen the first video, look below the video for a link to video number 1, because in video number 1 we did important things like cutting our designer series paper according to the Wonder recipe. We talked about the free as a bird Seaside Notion Stamp a Stack kit and a couple other important things. So this is our Stamp a Stack. I do a versatile Stamp a Stack each month ever since we couldn't get together in person at the Kitchen Table Stamper. This is something that I've been doing, and it's been a big hit. So we're continuing. This is the Seaside Notions. This is the free as a bird version. Both of these, or you can feature a stamp set that you like that goes with this color palette and make these cards. But both of these cards come from the same kit. All right, so you can either do 3 of this design, you can do 3 of this design, or you can do 2 of these and 1 of those. Either way, if you need the free as a bird stamp set or the Seaside Notions stamp set, buzz over to Marisa Alvarez.stampinup.net where you can order these currently, or feel free to use a stamp set that you have. So let's start out with some decisions here. We're gonna, for the sake of demonstration, do the Seaside Notions version. We've already cut our paper according to the Wonder recipe and divided it among our kits. The next step in this process is going to be to stamp the backgrounds of our card bases. So 3 of this design, we're going to stamp 3 card bases using our Birch Background stamp with Misty Moonlight ink on the Misty Moonlight card base. So there is a limited number of these kits available in the Kitchen Table Stamper store, but I'd like to offer the class as blog content. So it's free blog content. Each of the 3 videos in this series will be linked together if you're watching on YouTube under the video in the description, and if you're on the blog, the links for the Wonder recipe, the project sheet, all of that are underneath the embedded video. We're going to ink our Birch Background with Misty Moonlight. Card base is 8.5 by 5.5, and it's scored at 4 1/4 to make a standard A2 card. I like to pop the card base right on top of the Birch background, any background stamp for that matter, and then burnish with my fingertips. We're going to do that with all 8 cards. If you truly are stamping a stack, all at once is fine. All right, now I like this because I never skip the middles when I burnish with my fingers. Sometimes if I try to use a block, I end up with a skippy image, and a skippy image isn't cool. All right, in your card kit, you've got a couple of things here. There's a label and a stitched circle. We did these ahead of time, but if you're doing your own kits, you need to see what we did. So here is our Tasteful Labels dies. This label is the largest one, die cut from Misty Moonlight, and our stitched circle is from the Stitched Shapes dies, and it's the second largest, the 2 3/8 inch. And we did those ahead of time for you. We also cut our designer series paper according to the Wonder recipe. This is 2 3/4 by 3, and these are each 1 3/8 by 3. Let's go ahead and get started with our card by adhering some of these layers. I've got multi-purpose liquid glue here, and we can go ahead and adhere our very vanilla stitched circle to our Misty Moonlight label. I love this layering combination. And we can adhere our designer series papers to the card front. Now with 3 sheets of designer series paper in 3 different colors from the Subtles 6x6 designer series paper, cut with the Wonder recipe number 9, you can make 8 cards. So the Wonder recipe is a great way to stamp a stack. And we're going to adhere these 3 pieces kind of at jaunty angles, covering the front of the card base. Then our label, we can add that one too. So now we've got a bunch of layers all nailed down. In your card kit, you'll also find a Very Vanilla label. This Very Vanilla label was cut ahead of time with a classic label punch. All of these materials can be purchased at marisalvarez.stampin.net. Got some half sheets of Very Vanilla cardstock, and they were included in the kit. We're going to do the stamping for our project. You can do the stamping for all your cards at one time and color them all at one time and cut them all at one time. That's the idea of this class, is to do each card, not to do each card one at a time, but to do all 8 cards at one time for maximum efficiency. Get a lot of cards done at one time. So we're going to do our stamping, our images in basic gray, and for each card we need a shell, a conch shell, a sand dollar, and a coral. So you would stamp all 3 of the 4 images at one time if you're doing the Stamp-A-Stack style. I have a couple of shells left from designing the project, so there's 3 of those. And then coral, let's get 3 coral. We're going to watercolor these with ink pads and an aqua painter. So I'll show you one of each image. We'll color one of each image, and then I'll finish coloring and we're going to cut them out. We need a couple of the little shell image. I've got 2. Let's stamp one of those. All right, I think we've got everybody. 1, 2, 3, 4 elements. Excellent. While we're stamping, let's grab the Here's to You greeting. This is from Seaside Notions. And let's stamp our little Here's to You banner. It's a close fit. Remember, there's 2 sides to every paper. You can also, if you're got Very Vanilla cardstock and the label punch, you can stamp on a scrap of Very Vanilla from the kit and punch it out. There we go. Good lineup that time. All right, let's start with our basic gray coloring. Since we've got our basic gray ink pad here, you'll notice there's ink in the cover of my ink pad. I do that by just squeezing the ink pad so that it makes contact with the cover. You can do that whether you've got the old style or the new style Stampin' Up! Pads. And now we're going to watercolor with the ink. All right, so we're going to use an aqua painter. Make sure that it's wet by giving it a little squeeze, and then you can pick up some gray ink, and you want to fill in with a light wash, and then pick up more ink and add your shadows. For this little guy, I'm putting the shadows kind of at each little curl and then along the bottom of the shell. The more wet your brush is, the more of a washed out watercolor effect you'll get. In between colors, clean off the brush by just wiping off on some scratch paper. And now let's move to some Blushing Bride. We'll do our Sand Dollar and Blushing Bride. I like to wet the surface of the image that I'm painting. Pick up the ink, start from the left side where the color will be more intense. Kind of draw in a little shadow and then fill in with the ink, letting the brush clean itself as you move from the left to the right. So there's our little Sand Dollar. Let's go ahead and clean our brush. For the coral, we're gonna swipe in the lines with a little wet brush and then pick up lots of soft sea foam, and they kind of color along and let the brush clean itself. touching where the artist put in the shadows first, letting the brush clean itself as I move away from those little dots the artist drew in for shadow. And then anywhere that was a little light, go back and add some more ink and clean my brush. Now the sample card has this seashell colored in So Saffron. We're gonna do Balmy Blue to match our designer series paper choices for this round of the Stamp-A-Stack. Got my Balmy Blue Stampin' pad. Let's get a little more ink on the cover there. Just squeeze the center of the pad. It'll push the pad up against the cover and give you a palette to paint with. And here's our shell in Balmy Blue. I'm gonna just wash over the shell with water, pick up the Balmy Blue, and then down the left side, we're gonna add our shadow and then clean our brush as we move away from the shadow. Can go in and intensify that a little bit, bring the color out a little wider. And there's our Balmy Blue seashell. Now all of these dry a little bit lighter than they look while you're painting them, so keep that in mind. And it's watercolor. Let the water take the ink where it wants to. It's all right. Okay, I'm gonna cut all these out and I'll be back to finish this card with you. All right guys, I'm back. I took one of each of those images that we colored, cut them out. Now let's get some dimensional on the 3 pieces. You're not gonna put dimensional on your sand dollar. I like to put the dimensionals on the end of the coral, kind of like at the tips of the branches. Just cutting up bits of dimensional. We're also going to add our dimensional adhesive to the back of our Here's to You label. And like we did with our previous card from video number 1, we've got some ribbon here from the kit, and we're going to unravel the ends just a little bit. Get some ribbon scissors. My paper scissors just bounce right off a ribbon. One end of the ribbon is going to probably unravel a little bit easier than the other. There is a, an end that's woven the right way and the end that's woven the wrong way. So just work the little fibers, the threads, until you get about 1/4 of an inch of fringe on each end. Isn't that fun? It has kind of a beachy theme, or reminds me a little bit of a bird's nest if you're using the Free as a Bird. We're going to add a little strip of tear and tape adhesive across the bottom of our label and circle here, just above the strips. Extend just a little bit past the ends of the circle. Lift it up. Add your ribbon. Burnish it into the adhesive. Then your greeting. Here's to You, and that's going to go over the edge of the ribbon. Then I like to put my largest shell, little multi-purpose liquid glue on the back of the sand dollar. Didn't burnish down the coral yet. We want to make sure we like the position of it. Then once we've got those, we're going to cover the gap with our last seashell. I like that placement. I'll burnish it down. I'm going to take 1/2 of a dimensional, and I'm going to pop that little 1/2 a dimensional right in that open area that we're covering. And pop that last shell. Here's to You. Now, in your kit, you got these elegant faceted gems. We're going to go ahead and apply 3 little clear ones, just kind of bubbling up from the corner of our greeting here. Here's to You in our original color palette of So Saffron, Petal Pink, and Soft Seafoam. In our new palette of Balmy Blue, Soft Seafoam, Blushing Bride, and here is our alternate version with the Free as a Bird, and this one is Pool Party, Blushing Bride, and Pear Pizzazz. So, Free as a Bird, Seaside Notion, Stamp-A-Stack number 2, design number 2, completed. Now we have one more design, and all of the information is on the blog, the Printable Wonder Recipe number 9 cutting guide for the designer series papers. The other designs, the videos to the other designs, this is design number 1, design number 2, and I'll see you in the next video where we'll do design number 3. All right, if you got questions about anything, the Stamp-A-Stack, the Wonder Recipe, the kit, Stampin' Up, anything I can do to help you stay crafty, email Marisa at kitchentablestamper.com. And to shop for Stampin' Up supplies, you can buzz over to marisa@alvarez.stampinup.net. Thanks for watching.